right. I think for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and get moving here. Thanks everyone for hopping on. Excited to keep this series going and providing some insight and values to folks who are curious about all things parcel. Really quick, we'll just do some fast intros. My name is Nick Coons, based in Kansas City. Been with Sifted off and on for, I don't even know, 8-9 years at this point. And I'm joined by one of my colleagues, Will Green.
Hey
Will, if
everyone.
you want to do a quick intro. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that, Nick. Hey everyone, my name is Will Green, solutions engineer here with Sifted. I've really spent the majority of my career helping shippers and 3PLs of all sizes identify software solutions to increase their efficiency for their supply chains. So looking forward to the conversation today.
We'll get into why folks are working with us, use cases, what Sifted is doing, um, in response to conditions we're seeing in the market, feedback we're hearing from our customers. As you can imagine, it's ever evolving, and so we need to be agile and in lockstep with our clients as they're dealing with very specific challenges inside their businesses. We're working with every industry you could possibly fathom. And there's a lot of changes going on, right? I mean, just a couple months, within the last few months, you look at UPS and there's, zone change definitions, 2% payment processing fees, obviously tariffs, right? The China surge fees and uh, late fees increasing from 8 to 10%. USPS, next day air service launched and they're starting to evolve and try and get competitive. Obviously with the SurePost, WorkShare shut down, Amazon shipping is a factor, right? We have customers who are now starting to dip their toes in the water of Amazon shipping as Amazon's beta testing some of these other markets. And so there's a lot going on, right, in the periphery. There's a lot of noise. And so a lot of customers we're working with, we're helping them cut through that, get granular, help them with decision support, decision making, what ifing. And so getting to speed of decision making with confidence, understanding what potential pitfalls could be to the business. We want to help them, especially new customers, just level set, get current state, what story is their information, their data telling us, and then we can start from there, right? Obviously, they may have very specific goals that senior leadership maybe has trickled down to the business, and we need to help them accomplish those goals. And there's a million different ways we can do it.
Yeah, Nick, just to boil that down, right? The industry is extremely complex. Parcels changing all the time. Carriers are making changes all the time. New carriers are coming to market. Really, our goal here is to provide, a solution to help shippers, manage the complexity of their business and the complexity of the parcel industry so that they're not operating in efficiency. They're not spending wasted time and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And we find that, a lot of times with this finance focused webinar, I mean, all the different, internal silos will bleed into one another. But specifically, when we're getting into the financial side of things, a lot of the finance folks we work with, and I don't care if it's controller, CFO, accounting, whatever it may be, typically it's a very cumbersome and manual effort when we're looking into forecasting, budgeting, understanding, landing cost and how does that fit into our COGS. And so getting to speed of needed information, right? If we can decrease the amount of time with the motions that you're already doing, which then typically enables the organization to focus on more revenue generating or more impactful activities for the business when you're freeing up labor resources, right? And so these are just some common things we're seeing and hearing about. It's like, hey, we're doing a lot of forecasting. There's a lot of budgeting. There's a lot of what ifing. We just don't know. So a lot of assumptions. Our team spends a lot of manual time on billing reconciliation. And hey, did we get invoiced correctly or not? Cash flow is top of mind, right? What are some strategies around that pertaining to our parcel and how can we free up some cash flow? Obviously, uncertainty in the market, right? Every business is feeling it. Just about every industry is feeling it globally until there's finality with the tariffs. It's an uneasy feeling for a lot of folks, right? And so teams may be spread thin. We're wearing a lot of hats. There's a lot going on. And we just do not have a clear line of sight. And that scares us, and that is a potential threat to the business. So that's where we're coming in and helping them, find that needle in the haystack, if you will, and say, hey, this could be a potential problem for you guys. Let's talk about it. It's not just finance though, right? So it bleeds over into operations, logistics, leadership, frontline teams. It's every facet of the business. A lot of companies obviously are focused on let's get product out, let's get it to customers. How do we do it faster, cheaper? And so we start getting into those motions with those different stakeholders inside the business, whether it's the executive team helping folks communicate up, down, sideways more efficiently with automated KPIs, alerting, custom or tailored use cases. We have a lot of folks who leverage our out of the box program and our software, but they need more customized solutions that are very specific to their business. And so we're able to do that, and not, do the square peg round hole, right? And so operations typically, I mean, you guys know this if you're in there, there's constant pressure to optimize, be efficient. Finance, we're taking a lot of time to pull data, figure things out, multiple data sets from different sources, whether it's ERP or TMS or WMS. How do we make sense of all this stuff, right? What's the source of truth? Logistics, right? Shipping rates keep going up. We feel like we don't have leverage to even or level the playing field, or even, what do we counter back with? What are things we should be looking out for? When we get with executives, we're getting into the whole data integrity motions, security. How do we know this isn't a bad decision? How do we stress test this decision? So enabling those different groups to do what they need to do more effectively and leveraging our platform and our tools as a force multiplier in their day to day. Well, I don't know if there's anything else you would add to that.
No, I think that's a really great summary. And as we kind of go through the conversation here, we'll get into some really specific solutions of where we fit you know, in that finance space specifically. But I think as we go through the conversation and go through, our capabilities and our platform, it'd be pretty clear how the value, bleeds out not just to finance, but to other members of the team as well. Starting here with bill pay. So this is a solution that we offer to a large number of our customers to help them automate the way that they're paying invoices today. Really, it's just it's a time savings value that we're bringing to them, allowing them to kind of take that off their plate. Our software solution handles that for them. We're automating the payment process. We can handle credit card or ACH payments. We're providing a support personnel on our side as well to help you, make sure as a shipper you understand what's going on, what payment terms we're sticking to, how things are applying, and then using a dashboard as well to track the status of that, so you can see your payments flow through. And basically in real time, you can see what you're being invoiced by the carrier. In our software, you can see what's being paid against those invoices.
Well, and I think this kind of segues nicely into when we get into general ledger coding and reference coding, as simple or as complex as that may be for the organization, tying into that bill pay program. And even this by itself can be standalone, where we find a lot of teams are, spending a ton of time on this, right, Will?
Yeah,
And, it's wild.
yeah, yeah. That's a great point. Again, this is standalone. You don't need to buy one of these, use one of these products to leverage the other. GL coding is just a way to help us, for us to help our shipper, customers automate that cost allocation process. Again, a lot of professionals that we talk to don't have good processes in place for doing that. It's a bit more tedious and manual than they feel it should be. And it's just because they don't have the tools in place to help them automate that. They're stuck using things like Excel or other
Mm-hmm.
tools that, they're very flexible, but they're not made for the problem they're trying to solve. And so with GL coding, we're taking that logic that you're using. We can be extremely flexible with that as well. We'll really sit down and work to understand how that allocation needs to work and then apply that at the shipment and charge level. So as we're pulling in invoice information from your carriers, and pulling that into our system and into our platform, we're sending that through the logic. And so it's an automatic process. And then once that's put in place and it's populated in our platform, it's really easy as a user to pull in like a package level or charge level report with that GL logic applied, and kind of go through it from there instead of having to do any one-off processes after the fact, right? It's just completely automated.
Mm-hmm.
And I see, Nick, you've pulled up our platform here right now. On this can be this spend summary dashboard where we're starting off. It's just a great tool to understand what is driving cost, right? Parcel can be a really huge line item on companies' expenses. It's not a cheap service. It can be hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions, even hundreds of millions with some of our larger partners in spend every single year. And so just understanding what's driving that cost can be a really important aspect of managing it. And so we
Mm-hmm.
can break that down by carrier, by service, and then a great tool over here that is our recommendations over on the right. And so this can be an awesome tool for helping a a shipper understand not just what their costs are, but what this platform will actually do is look through your shipping data, and it's programmed to look at a dozen or so areas that are common drivers for overspend. And so something
Mm-hmm.
like what Nick is hovering over right now, unauthorized oversized overmax fees. These are charges that are, an individual charge can be over $1,000 for basically putting an item into the carrier, into like a FedEx or UPS network that they don't want. So they're going to charge a lot of money to it. The system can automatically flag these and put together a recommendation saying, hey, these are the shipments that are driving this cost. They need to be moved over into an LTL or freight network. And here's the cost impact that you're seeing because of shipping them incorrectly. Right. And so this goes into not just understanding what's driving costs, but also mitigating cost, keeping that,
Mm-hmm.
keeping expenses as low as possible. Another great
Mm-hmm.
one here is late payment fees. Whatever your terms are with the carrier, if you're outside of that, they're going to hit you with a late payment fee. And they don't always make that extremely clear when you're getting a late payment fee, what's driving that, what the cost of it is, just because of the complexity of their invoices. And this is a
Mm-hmm.
percent-based charge. So the more money that you're late on, the higher the cost of your late payment fees will be, and these can start stacking on each other. These costs can add up very, very quickly. And so this is why we really want to make it extremely easy for as a user not to have to even go into the platform and find it, but to be alerted on the front end when it's happening so you can
Mm-hmm.
address the root cause. And it goes
Mm-hmm.
really hand in hand with some of our other product offerings like payment fees, we can help with the bill pay process, right? And so if you're using Sifted to help with bill pay, we'll guarantee that you're not going to get those late payment fees. We're going to manage that process. We're going to automate it. And we're going to make sure that you're not getting hit with those charges as part of it. But if you're still managing it yourself, it can be, great as a user to see where it's happening, see what accounts are driving it, what invoices are driving it, and know what I need to do to, get that cleaned up and prevent any additional charges from coming through.
Well, and I think that is interesting, right? Where we were on speaking with a client the other day, 2 days ago, um, and they're needing help with that root cause analysis, right? Hey, maybe you're leveraging a 3PL for fulfillment and distribution, and you're shipping on your account numbers, but hey, is that 3PL partner following your internal SLAs that you've set forth? Are they using the right boxes for the different types of SKUs that need to go out based on what you've directed them to do, or even internally, right? We see we're bleeding cash or whatever it is. Hey, we're gonna with our agreement, we want to monitor. Are we going to go above or below an incentive tier? Some folks want help tracking how they're doing towards quarterly incentives or rebates, or maybe they've had incentives to move to a carrier, but those incentives have conditions attached to them, and we need to make sure we're in bounds with, what's required to maintain that incentive. And so, the needs are varied, and this recommendations can be pretty powerful in the sense that instead of you digging for things, the software, to Will's point, is going to bubble it up to the surface. Have we been invoiced correctly? Right? A lot of folks don't realize that humans are involved and incorrect billing happens all the time. So let's make sure that that's zero, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost, we had a business owner describe it. It was kind of interesting. He thought of it as a security system for his parcel. And I was like, never thought of it that way. But I don't have to worry about if something's wrong, the software is going to tell me if it's wrong and then what I need to do to go fix it really quickly. But when we talk about enabling our customers to look around the corner, finance specifically, budgeting, forecasting, even though you have that agreement with that carrier every year, right? Inside of that, you're going to experience that general rate increase. Maybe some folks have a cap on their base rates, which we can bake into the mix here. But in essence, what we're doing for our customers is as soon as the carrier is putting it out there into the ether, if you will, and they publish what those are officially going to be, we will proactively run an analysis to let you know the net effect of that GRI and how it's going to impact your specific profile. People forget when a carrier says 5.9%, what that is an average cost increase across their customer base, right? So if we look at this year, for example, the shippers who are doing heavier, bulkier, weird shaped items, we're typically experiencing a much higher increase on the accessorial side of things because a lot of those charges were going up a minimum of 25%, whether that's overmax, oversized, the flavors of AHS or additional handling, right? Whatever it may be. Whereas maybe the shippers that are typically sending smaller, lightweight type things, it wasn't as dramatic of an impact. So every year it's a little bit different. And so this is going to enable finance, and this is done within a matter of days, where we can segment out, the full impact, right, on base rates, your top 10 accessorials. You can change, you can make it everything here if you want. You can start getting granular into cost uptick by account, right? Or, maybe you just want to look at the base rates, or maybe it's the accessorials. And so ignorance is not bliss, right? We don't want to put our pricing in place and set it and forget it for the next 36 months and then have that compound effect of annual rate increases, demand, other new fees throughout the year. It's constant. The velocity of change is increasing. So we cannot just kind of sit on our hands and think everything's good, right? So what used to be a lot of work to understand how the impact is going to affect us is no longer a lot of work. Now folks are coming in here and saying, oh, wow, we're going to get a 26% uptick here. We're going to get, a 7%, 8%, whatever it may be. But it's going to give you direction and guidance to have a constructive dialogue with your rep, right? Hey, love the partnership. Not thrilled about a 27% increase on these 4 sections within our agreement. So let's have a chit chat about that and streamline some things, right?
It's also, as you mentioned, that just being able to automate and get to the speed of to value when you're looking to do an analysis, like putting together a forecast for your spend for the next year. Something like
Mm-hmm.
GRI, it seems pretty straightforward. Carriers announce a 5.9% increase, but really when you get into the weeds with it, it's a lot more complex like than that. It's never going to be what they announce for your business specifically. And so it can be really time consuming and really complicated as a project to go through this and be somewhat accurate. And so that's really where we see a lot of value from the customers that we talk to, from this tool specifically is actually, getting a sense of that in a reasonable period of time instead of having to,
Mm-hmm.
to turn this into an hours or days long analysis, which, is usually the current state when
Mm-hmm.
we're working with a shipper who's trying to push this out here. And it's not just peak season surcharges that are involved in this. And I'm sorry, GRI, it's also peak season surcharges, which Nick is pulling up here, which we can also help forecast out. GRI and the demand/peak charges, those happen every single year. Carriers will shift them slightly and have new logic and stuff like that. That just makes it a little bit more complicated every single time. And that's what having a software solution really provides the value is because we're able to do this at scale for hundreds of shippers every single year and help them really understand how these changes are impacting them every
Mm-hmm.
time the carrier announces it. And it's not just the peak season and the GRI demand surcharges. It's, throughout the year, things change in your business and things change in, how the carriers, bill. They can introduce a new charge. They can change the logic
Yeah.
for a charge. You could be introducing a new product. There's a lot of one-off things that happen throughout the year that we're also able to factor in. And
Yeah.
so we do work with a lot of our, a lot of our customers to understand like, hey, what are you changing about your business and how do you want to forecast that out and what's the impact? So it doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to be these recurring scenarios. We can also help through, more one-off things as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, you hit it on the head with speed, right? Automation, efficiency. Like those are all cool buzzwords that people throw around, just like AI, right? Um, but we need to put that into context into the client's specific situation. Everyone's different, so we don't take this cookie cutter approach when we're engaging with a prospective customer, right? And so we meet you where you're at, trying to figure out current state. What are you working on? Why are you working on it? What does success look like? As you can imagine, the needs are varied. And a lot of times, what I've pulled up here is scenario modeling. There's a few different flavors of this. And Will, you could probably speak to this pretty well about um, how clients are able to pull away from, the standard model of let's go hire a consultant. We're going to spend over, six figures bringing these folks in. Nothing against that. But maybe is there a way that's just as effective, that's a lot more cost effective, that takes maybe less time? And how do you leverage software to do something like that? And that's kind of where we bring in and layer in different types of modeling scenarios for our customers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great call out, Nick. And just kind of keeping it high level here, there's a variety of modeling tools that we have, built out inside of our platform here. Service type optimization that Nick just selected as one, package modeling, network optimization, contract modeling. These are all tools to help shippers create what if scenarios and understand how making changes to their parcel network and their decision making around parcel shipping will impact their bottom line. And so whether this is going to be like a cost increase or or a cost decrease, they're looking to open or, close a distribution point in their network. What is that going to do to their cost? They're looking to introduce a new box size. What is that going to do to their cost? Things like tools like this can really allow users to self-service those types of analyses. And so you don't have to rely on a consultant to do a one-off project. You can have the tools at your fingertips to understand how this is going to impact your cost and do this effectively. And then obviously, you on our side, we're happy to offer support through this as well. But I think what really separates us from that consultant model is empowering users to solve these problems on their own.
Mm-hmm. At the
And
end of
and
the
Nick,
day, I mean, well, I think that's a great point. I hear it all the time, and you probably do too, where, some folks are like, hey, I know more about parcel now than I've ever wanted to know. Um, I understand that. Sometimes maybe someone is really well versed on the, freight, LTL, ocean, air freight world, if you will, where a small parcel maybe seems like the Wild West to them. But we, when we partner with folks, um, we want you to understand the why behind things, right? We're here to be a
yeah,
resource for you to lean on.
no, that's a great call out. We really want to meet shippers at any level that they need us to meet them at. So for,
Mm-hmm.
if we're going through and just kind of providing some, helping you walk through the software, understand what this all means, help you get an understanding of parcel, kind of that more introduction level, like Nick just described, happy to meet you there. If also you're more as a user, you're more in line with your parcel network. You understand everything that's going on. You just need tools to work faster and more efficiently. We can
Mm-hmm.
also meet you there as well. Like Nick's walking us through this contract modeling tool, which allows a user to come in and really streamline the evaluation of different carrier proposals and contract changes. Another great tool that we have is our reporting studio. So if you're really like an analytical user, you're really in the weeds with parcel data, what this allows you to do is come in, get direct access to your parcel data inside the Sifted platform and have the ability to build out a lot of these reports and models and tools that we've been showing in this demonstration. So don't
Hmm.
really want to get into the weeds with it because this is a very complex and powerful tool. But if
Right.
you're someone who, you're using Excel or Power BI, you're having to go into different carrier websites and export data, drag them into another platform to put together tables and pivot tables and visualizations. Our reporting studio tool can really streamline a lot of those processes, giving you a BI tool that's connected directly to your data, so you don't have to go through that data cleansing process. You can just get straight to building out the analytics you need to see in the visualizations you may need to make your decisions.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's all about everyone's different, even when we get into, just reporting, right? And there's a myriad of use cases on why we need to run reports, et cetera. So we want to enable you to automate any of this stuff. And with the platform, there's a million different outputs you can have, right? You could set up several customized reports. You can customize your views in the platform and save those views. So you don't have to manually toggle things every single time. You'll just pop in here and I'll just show you that. And you can just have, here's my different views. And maybe it's your business has acquired different companies over time and we want to segment the different business units inside of here. We want that macro level, but then also the micro level to understand the characteristics of each business unit, right? Or maybe it's by supplier, or maybe it's by customer. There's a million things, right? So there's a lot of ways to just work smarter, not harder, with this software. And to Will's point earlier, obviously, we're here to help, right? You're not left to your own to just kind of figure things out. We would assign an actual human being to your account. You'd have a dedicated logistics intelligence engineer to reach out to for a lot of different use cases. Plus their entire support team on top of that, and they're all based in the US. And so we take that very seriously, and we're here for you to lean on and to leverage. Um, and, a lot of times, even if it's just us acting as a sounding board with what ifing ideas that are going on internally. I'm just curious, and I can chime in on this, but Will and I work together pretty extensively. And I feel like over the last, I don't know, 6 to 8 months, we're seeing more and more complex requests and asks from folks. Like, I feel with the tariffs and that whole debacle occurring, it has forced businesses to take a very hard introspective look into all things cost, where
Yeah.
maybe small parcels kind of been ignored. Maybe their LTL is a much bigger thing, and now they're really pulling the onion back, right, and taking a look at things. Do you feel like you're seeing that as well? Like companies are really taking a harder introspective look into their shipping costs?
Yeah, no, 100%. And not just cost, but also like profitability as well, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's different lenses that companies like to look at that by. If you're, maybe you have a smaller subset of customers, you like to understand profitability by customer, which customers are driving high shipping cost, or we can
Yeah.
get down to a more granular level. You're trying to solve problems like profitability by order or by SKU. Do I have specific items that I'm selling that because of the way they have to be boxed, that the cost to ship them is actually eating away or completely destroying my profitability for them because of like dim charges, digital handling charges, things like that. So really getting into interesting projects and models with customers, like taking their order and SKU data, comparing that against um, their shipping data and putting together reports for them to understand, what are their margins looking like? What are their profits looking like? How is shipping affecting all of that? And it
Mm-hmm.
really just kind of ties into a lot of the themes we were talking about earlier is like what strategies can we take to make sure these items are actually more profitable, making data-driven decisions, saying like, okay, hey, like the box size of this is actually, causing us to hit additional handling. We need to think of another way to package this because we're spending twice as much on shipping as we're charging the customer for this item. And
Mm-hmm.
we've tried, or are we trying to pass shipping costs on to customers and they're not willing to pay at a
Mm-hmm.
certain point? Is that causing, certain items not to sell as well if you're like an e-com shipper or something like that? So a lot of interesting use cases that we've seen here over the past year or so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, folks, I think that takes us close to time, and really appreciate you hopping on.
Thank you all for the time.
Thanks all.